Nazni Mashiri, Al Jazeera, Tunis.
They fill Tahrir Square, urging him to go. Now Egypt's top prosecutor says Hosni Mubarak isn't going anywhere. The former president has been banned from travel and his assets seized. We'll have all the details coming up. And later, justice served in Iraq. A British private security officer is given a life sentence for murder.
Over the Sea of Japan, as cool conditions persist, you'll find something to whet your appetite.
Hello again. The flooding rains are still with us through many parts of South America. If we take a look at the satellite picture, it's a little jumpy, but you can make out this huge area of cloud here just in the southern parts of Brazil, and more wet weather all along this western coast here. Heavy downpours down into Lima. So we've got yet more wet weather to come then as we head through the next few days. There could be more in the way of localised flooding, yet more wet weather all the way from that western coast all the way down towards Rio. To the south of that, though, it's generally a lot drier, and it won't be quite as hot as it has been either. So Buenos Aires this time getting to around 27 degrees. Now, if we head towards Cape Town here, it's actually going to be a bit hotter than it has been. Looks like our temperature will be right up at a sticky 34 degrees as we head through Tuesday. Elsewhere, it's also going to be warm, but not that hot. 28 there in Durban. The showers there still stretching from Madagascar all the way across through Mozambique and across towards Angola. Some heavy ones at that. A little bit further north, and the wettest weather here seems to be through parts of Pakistan and across into Afghanistan as well. Heavy downpours and a lot of snow there as you head into the northern parts of India as well. We've just got the tail end of that here in Doha. A fresher day, I think, for us on Tuesday. The wind's quite brisk and from the north.
Qatar Airways, world's 5-star airline.
He's taken stolen goods and he's now dumping them onto the world without any sort of consideration for consequences.
From people making the news.
If the North will be saved a lot of trouble, I think it is important that they should come together.
To those it affects.
We do accept that there was very bad mistakes made in our banking area.
Behind the headlines.
Most South Koreans are not interested in reunification.
Is the inside story. At this time on Al Jazeera.
Welcome back. The top stories in Al Jazeera.
They love me, all my people with me. They love me all.
Muammar Gaddafi has told America's ABC network that his country is still behind him. He also said Al-Qaeda is to blame for the unrest. Libya's Air Force has reportedly bombed an ammunition dump held by opposition forces in the city of Ajdabaya. And the online edition of Corina newspaper says several people are dead in the capital Tripoli after forces loyal to Gaddafi opened fire to disperse a protest. The European Union has approved wide-ranging sanctions on Libya, including an arms embargo, a visa ban and a freeze on assets. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton says it's time for Gaddafi to go. A British former security contractor has been sentenced to life in prison after admitting to shooting 2 men dead in Iraq. He's the first Westerner to be convicted in an Iraqi court since the 2003 US-led invasion of the country. Jane Araf reports.
For Danny Fitzsimons, it could have been so much worse. Hours after he arrived in the country 2 years ago, in a drunken rage, he shot and killed an Australian and British co-worker and wounded an Iraqi guard. That's not in dispute. The question was his state of mind when he did it. The verdict, not death by hanging, but life in prison. In Iraq, though, that means just 15 years, a far shorter sentence than he likely would have received in the West.
We respect the independence of the Iraqi judicial system and note the court's verdict and the sentence. We will continue to offer consular assistance to Mr. Fitzsimons. At this time, we should also remember the families of those who died in the tragic incident Mr. Fitzsimons was on trial for.
His lawyer here says it wouldn't have gone nearly so well if the trial hadn't dragged on for a year. A year ago, the legacy of the U.S. security firm Blackwater shooting dead 14 civilians in a Baghdad square was still very much alive. It led Iraq to ban the company and put strict controls on private security firms. When it came time to negotiate a new security agreement with the U.S., it made sure to insist that the immunity they always had be dropped. Post-traumatic stress disorder isn't widely understood here. Most of the country probably suffers from it. Fitzsimon's lawyer says the court decided that while his client was mentally competent, the horrors he'd seen as a British soldier in Kosovo had left him deeply troubled.
Danny is sick. He has lots of illnesses. If you read the medical report, the British medical reports, and the reports from the medical committee, says he has been exposed to very ugly scenes in Kosovo. This illness makes the one who has it feel like everyone else is his enemy, and the slightest provocation will have dangerous consequences.
And then there was the drinking. He drank a liter of scotch when he opened fire on his colleagues. There are still tens of thousands of private security contractors in Iraq. For most of the war, they were immune from being prosecuted here. But now Iraq has responsibility for its own security. And with this ruling, they've made clear they will administer their own justice as well. Jane Araf, AlJazeera, Baghdad.
Egypt's public prosecutor has issued a travel ban on former President Hosni Mubarak and his family. Their financial assets have also been frozen. Mubarak has not been heard from since he stepped down last month. Ayman Mohideen has more.
Forced out of office and now in the crosshairs of Egypt's prosecutor general. On Monday, former President Hosni Mubarak and his family were banned from traveling abroad and all of their financial assets and property in Egypt frozen pending further investigation. Mubarak and his family had reportedly accumulated billions of dollars in wealth during their 30 years in power in both domestic and foreign assets. The president's two sons, Ala and Gamal, were widely believed to have exploited their family ties for personal financial gains. Holding Mubarak and his former regime accountable is important if Egypt is to make a break from its past.
I think it's a very positive decision. One of the demands of the revolution, which pushes it forward and reassures the people to a great extent, especially these investigations in corruption.
Shortly after Mubarak left office, Egypt's foreign ministry requested foreign governments and financial institutions to freeze all foreign assets belonging to Mubarak's family. The travel ban and freeze is being imposed nearly 3 weeks after Mubarak stepped down, leaving some to question the prosecutor's intentions.
This is a positive step, but very late. It should have been taken when the prosecutor issued his decision to freeze Mubarak's assets abroad, and even before then, because it has given Mubarak time to smuggle his assets out of the country.
Mubarak is the most senior official of the previous regime, who is now under investigation for illegal activity. Similar travel bans and investigations have been launched into several top officials that served under Mubarak. And on Monday, indictments were filed against former ministers who are now set to go on trial in early March. Holding former regime officials accountable was one of the main demands of Egypt's revolutionary movement, saying the current